Up next, Steve Petermann, craft brewing from grain to glass. You know how you hear those stories, how someone starts their business in a garage, but you don't actually meet one of them very often? Well, tonight he's going to tell us about doing that very thing, of going from his garage to distributing his craft beer on the market.
Cheers, Hutchinson. It's great to be here before you today. I was very excited when Patsy asked me to do this, to convey what we're doing, like she said, going from garage to commercial production. With the brewing, hopefully you've been following us on Facebook. This is something I'm very passionate about. I'm glad to talk about it and share that with you. I wish I could share some samples with you tonight, but Patsy said we can do that maybe afterwards down at Carl. So. On the left here, you see this is the garage setup she was talking about. On the right, this is a commercial setup. So I'm going to do two things tonight. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the process of brewing. I also want to compare and contrast what a lot of people are already doing in Hutchinson, which is brewing out of the garage, versus what you would do brewing in a commercial brewery. So when you're brewing, when someone goes to drink a beer, they want something. If they go drink a Salt City beer today versus a week ago, they want to taste the same beer. So consistency is one of the main things that we try to accomplish in brewing beer. A little bit of history about beer. It's a beverage that's been around for over 5,000 years for two main reasons, or more than that, but two main reasons are, one is that it's a safer beverage back when they had not as clean water, and two is obviously the social aspect of it. Over 5,000 breweries now in the United States. This is the four ingredients in brewing beer. You've got malted barley on the top left, hops, yeast, and then water. This is barley that's been milled, so once you have the malted barley just means that the maltster has soaked the grain in water, got it germinating, getting those sugars available for our yeast to eat, then dried it and killed it to some degree. Can be anywhere from bready to biscuity, all the way to coffee, chocolatey, caramely, different flavors. This is my refrigerator in the garage, just stacked full of hops. Hops is a main ingredient in beer because it does two things. Antimicrobial, the safety we talked about before, it keeps microbes from growing. The other thing it really imparts, though, in a beer is the bitterness. So different beers have different levels of bitterness. If you like it, you like an IPA. If you don't, you like a blonde or some sort of lighter beer. Yeast is the next ingredient. On the left is a dry yeast. On the right is a yeast starter. It looks like a science experiment. So this is just where we put yeast into an Erlenmeyer flask on a spin plate and let the yeast propagate and grow before we pitch it on the wort when we get ready to make the beer. Water makes up 95% of what beer is, but it's often one of the most overlooked ingredients for home brewers. It's so critical because you cannot make every style of beer with the same water. If you've heard of a Czech Pilsner, water is very soft. Hutchinson water is so hard. Dark stouts and beers like that is what Hutchinson water would be good for. This looks like just a goofy picture of me, and it is. But the next thing that's most important is sanitation. If you don't have a clean working environment and equipment, you end up with wild yeast and bacteria. And it's not going to harm anybody, but what it's going to do is give you off flavors and sour tastes. Oftentimes what we call dumpers, where it has to be dumped down the drain because it's so bad you can't drink it. Behind sanitation, the next most critical thing is temperature. Yeasts have a specific temperature where they do their best work. If it gets too cold, they don't ferment, or it's a stalled fermentation. It gets too hot, they throw off all kinds of funky flavors and odors from esters and phenols. The other thing is, if you ever had a hangover from drinking beer, I'm sure none of you ever have, but a lot of times it comes from the phenols, the higher level alcohols. So this picture, just one thing that was so much fun for me is I went through all my slides on the phone and taking these. You're always holding your beer up to the light and trying to see, the quality of the beer, the clarity, the quality of the head on the beer. Here again, the main ingredient is barley. On the left, this is how a home brewer would mill their grain. A drill. I do 700-800 pounds of grain at a time like this. I'm happy to say here in the next 14 weeks, I'll have a commercial mill that will mill at the level you see on the right. That's how I receive my grain now. Now it takes hours to do. In the future, it's going to be a matter of minutes. Here on the left, you see Greg Fast actually mashing in grain, pouring grain into a mash tun. So that's the size of the equipment that you see on homebrew scale. On the right, you get kind of an idea on the commercial scale. It's so large, we have to rake the grain out, and we don't want to waste anything. So once that grain is used or spent, we actually load it up, and a farmer comes, picks it up, and we feed it to the cattle. This part is called sparging, and what that is, you lauter to separate the wort from the grain. That's the wort's what's going to change into beer. And then you sparge, which is basically just showering. On the left, you see again a homebrew scale shower. On the right, you see a commercial scale. And that just pulls the last of the sugars out there. We don't want to waste any of that. We want to make all the alcohol we can out of it. On the left here, this is the boil. This is where you sterilize the wort. This is where the hops are isomerized and the bitterness comes out from them. On the left, again, home scale. On the right, I've got just video of the boiling process. That's 240 gallons of beer actually boiling on the right. On the left, I think that's about 15. Next will be whirlpooling. On the left, you see Ellie Dozier actually brewing with me, and she's just stirring as mad and furious as she can. Usually it's a 10 to 15 minute deal or until you get tired. On the right, you can see we use pumps and circulate that wort, and centrifugal force pulls all those solids, the proteins and things that we want out of the beer to clear it up to the bottom of the kettle. Here we're chilling the beer. On the left-hand side, we call it a swamp cooler, and that's where a home brewer would put their fermenter in usually a bucket of ice and cover it with a towel, and the towel soaks up the water, airflow evaporates, it cools it. On the right, a much easier way to do it where we actually use glycol chillers to chill the wort. Here's the actual fermentation taking place on the left. You can notice the nice balancing act we've got going there. On the right, you get an idea again of the scope and size. The same process will happen in these different containers. Just on the left-hand side, we're in a refrigerator. On the right-hand side, we're actually using glycol to chill it. So once we've got the beer actually chilled and we want to carbonate it. On the left, just hooking up all these kegs so they're all carbonated individually. On the right, it's filtered before it's carbonated. And you can see the clarity on the one on the right versus the one on the left, how much clearer after you've run it through a plate filter. The last slide I'm going to leave you with is just an example of all the people here, or just a small example of people here that have brewed with me. What I love most about it is all the smiles on their faces. It's just a way to impart and bring joy to people's lives. And I appreciate all the support Hutchinson's given me. I look forward to lots more to come. So thank you very much.